Hi everyone. In this video I am going to explain how to send email from Java code using Spring classes. Before that, I will show you the code how to send email from normal Java code, means without any Spring support. If you see this, first we have to create a set of properties, and we have to give the SMTP email server and the port at which the SMTP is running. Okay, and if authentication is required or not, and we have to provide these things in a properties object, and then you have to call the session.get instance giving this properties object, and then you will get a session object. This session comes from the package javax.mail. So basically you have to add mail.jar, mail API.jar. So you will get the session here, and you have to create a message object using the session which you obtained from in the previous step, and you have to set the recipient to whom this email should be sent, the subject and the text, and you have to call the send method in the transport class, right? So basically you are providing the properties. You have to get the session using this properties object, and then you have to get the message object. This class also comes from the javax.mail.message. The package mail related jar contains the message class, this session, and the transport, all these things. If you see the transport also, it comes from the mail related jar. So you have to populate the properties, you have to get the session, you have to get the message, you have to call the transport.send, right? This is a way of sending an email without Spring support. Now let us see how we can use Spring supported classes to send an email. I have already created the project and example, but in the NetBeans, if you want to do this example, go to File, New Project, Java Application, click some Mail Pro. Okay, click Finish. Okay, and then right click, go to Properties, choose Libraries, click on Add Library, select Spring related jars, and click Add Library, and then select OK. So just this is what required to send an email. Basically we have set the class path for the Spring related jars. That's it. Since already I have created, just I have shown the steps here, but I'm using this project, except that I didn't do anything. For sending mail, you have to set the path for a jar file called java mail mail.jar. I have already set this. How to do means, right click, in addition to the Spring jars, right click, properties, libraries, add jar, and choose the java mail jar. Okay, I have already selected that. So basically you have to right click and add the Spring libraries, and then you have to add the java mail API.jar, and then if you see this, I have created an interface called mail interface. It has a method called send email from, to, and body, something like that. And we have to write a class which implements this mail IMPL. Okay, so the send email, I'm implementing the interface, and I'm defining this send email method. Okay, if you see the earlier code, what you have done, you have given the properties, you have get the session, get the message, right? And then you have to call the transport. But if you see, we have declared something called mail sender, right? There is a setter method called set mail sender. Okay, see how simple it is to send an email from Spring supporting classes. Simple mail message. If you see, the simple mail message is a class given by Spring framework. So it takes care of all these details like getting the session, okay, calling this send method, and all these things are abstracted by the Spring API. So you can avoid all this boilerplate code. Okay, this is called generally in Spring terminology boilerplate code, repeated code. We need not write the code to get the session, okay, and to get the message from the my message from the session and all these things. You have to just create an instance for this mail message, set from, to, and subject, and then call the mail sender is the class given by the Spring framework. Okay, in this mail message you set the from, to, and the subject and the text, and call the send method from the mail sender class. This mail sender class is given by Spring framework. It takes care of all the details we have done here, like creating the session and all these things. So basically Spring abstracts all these details. It is very simple, right? You don't need to bother about internal details. Just call the send method from the mail sender class to send the message. But who has created this mail sender object? Did I create here? No, I didn't create here. So then it will be null, right? But I have called. So that means someone has created an object and called this setter method to set this object. That is actually in addition to the explaining sending an email, I am telling the concept of dependency injection in Spring. Basically, dependency injection means, see, this mail implementation class has a dependency called mail sender. That means this mail implementation class needs an object of mail sender to call the send method, right? We are calling the send method on this object, but did we create the object? No, we didn't create. If you observe the code, we never created an object for this mail sender. Then who has created? The Spring will create an object and inject that object through this setter method. Okay, this is called dependency injection. This class has a dependency of mail sender. So this mail sender dependency will be injected by the Spring container. Okay, but how does it know that this object has to be injected into this class? There must be a way to specify to Spring to inject this mail sender object into this property. So that is the way. The way is to, you can specify this information in a XML file. Okay, in Spring we have to specify if you see this, I'm creating an object for mail IMPL. See, I'm creating an object for mail IMPL. Okay, see, when you declare a bean, this object or bean will be managed by Spring. So you have to declare that you need an object of mail IMPL class and give the ID as mail bean. And if you observe, this mail IMPL has a dependency of mail sender, right? So this has to be populated by someone, right? So Spring takes care of creating this object and calling this method. So you have to specify that, hey Spring, create an object for this and populate this into this object. So you are telling that when you create an instance of this mail IMPL, I need your help to create an object for mail sender, and also after creating this object, insert or inject this object into the property called mail sender. Understand? See, but if you see, to create the mail sender, see, Spring cannot send and cannot know the details of the SMTP and all those things, right? So this mail sender object, to create this mail sender object, sorry, this Java mail sender IMPL, okay, implements, if you see the API, Java mail sender IMPL implements the mail sender interface. So for this mail sender, we are creating an object of Java mail sender IMPL. This will implement the mail sender interface. So you can assign an object of this Java mail sender IMPL to this property, right? Because this is an interface. For the interface, you can assign any class that implements this mail sender interface. So in the XML, you are creating an object, and for this class you have to specify in, if you see, basically this class implements the mail sender interface. This class contains the host, the port, and Java mail properties. So for creating this object, you have to populate this value, these properties, right? So in the XML file, you have to tell the property and the value. You have to tell the property and the value. So you are creating an object of Java mail sender IMPL, and you have to give an ID for this. So if you see the mail IMPL has a dependency called mail sender, right? So this object has to be created, and this object need to be injected into this property, right? So what we are doing here, we are declaring a class with an ID, and for the property mail sender, in the class use this bean. That means when you ask Spring to give this bean, what will happen is Spring reads this XML and creates an object for this class. Okay, if you let me go to the code, application context is a Spring container. Okay, is an implementation of bean factory. There are different implementations of the bean factory. Application context is a container. That means this container reads this XML file, okay, and creates an object. So when in the code, if you ask the context to give, if you see, I'm asking to get a bean with the ID mail bean. So this context knows what is this ID. So you have already specified mail bean as an object of mail IMPL. So when you ask Spring to give the bean with the ID mail bean, it will create an object for this, and in this property you have to set this property, right? So Spring will inject, it will also create another object of class Java mail sender IMPL, and this bean instance will be injected into the mail sender property of this mail IMPL. Okay, the meaning of this line is when you ask Spring to get a bean, it will create when you ask Spring to give an object get the bean with the bean ID mail bean, then it will refer to the class and it will create an object for mail IMPL. Okay, so it creates an object for mail IMPL, and mail IMPL, if you observe, mail IMPL has a reference called mail sender. So to set this reference, when you say reference, it will go to the ID, go to the bean and seize the ID, and it will create this object. Okay, and the instance of this mail sender, it will create another object. Okay, since in the for the mail sender property, when you say ref is equal to mail sender, it will see the bean with the name mail sender and it will create an object for this. Okay, and this, there is a property called mail sender in mail IMPL object, right? So somebody has to create an object and set this property. Since you have asked Spring to inject this object, it will go and create this object, and this object will be injected by Spring into mail sender property. Okay, so for creating this object, you have to create the dependency object also. Instead of you creating the dependency object, let Spring inform, just inform to Spring to create an object for this. How it will know which object to create and to be injected into this property? When you say ref is equal to mail sender, it means go to the bean and find the class and create an object for this and inject this object into the property mail sender. So basically when you say get bean, an object will be created for the mail IMPL, and the dependency to create or resolve the dependency, it will go to this class and it will create an object for this, and that object will be injected into the property called mail sender in the class mail IMPL. So basically you will get an object mail IMPL with this property injected by Spring. This property will be injected by the Spring by seeing this configuration. So you will get, if you see, for creating the object of this class, it will create an object. When you say bean declaration and you ask it to create, this Java mail sender IMPL contains many properties, host, port, and all these properties you have given here, right? So after creating the object for this class, Spring populates these properties by calling set host, set port, set user, set password. So basically an object is created for this class, and the properties host and port are present in this class. These these properties will be populated with these values, and this object will be injected into the property called mail sender in the class mail IMPL. So Spring mail sender reads this and creates this object. So when you call the send email by giving the from and to and object, it will send an email. Okay, the advantage of using Spring is you avoid the boilerplate code, all this stuff, and through the dependency injection, if you want to switch to any other implementation class, suppose you can write another class which implements this mail interface and just modify the class. Instead of saying class mail IMPL, if you can give mail new IMPL, that means you might write another class, some other developer, or if there is a requirement to use some other implementation class of this interface, then by simply modifying here, instead of using this mail IMPL, the new class which implements this interface will be used. No need to change any code here. Okay, this is the advantage of dependency injection. If you want to switch to another implementation, it is as easy as changing the class in the XML file. Okay, when you give the interface at the runtime, you can pass any object that implements this interface. Currently the mail sender is implemented by mail IMPL. In future this mail sender interface may be implemented by some other class. If you want to remove this implementation class, and if you want to use that new implementation class, then no need to change this code. Just give that class. Instead of giving org.gl.mail IMPL, give mail new IMPL. That's it. So the Spring will create an object for this class and it will be injected into the mail IMPL. Okay, when you call the XML file, now it will give the implementation class or object of this interface, the new class which implements this interface. Okay, and when you say send email in the mail interface, okay, when you say the send email, what will happen? This implementation uses the Spring classes and it will call the send method, so it will send an email. Let us run this. Welcome to Java learners group. Okay, I'm executing this. Sorry, since I modified here, now we will do. If you see, we got a new mail. Welcome to Java learners group. Hope you understand. Thank you.